Hey, what's going on, guys? The Horror Man back with an in-depth ranking of the TCM franchise. I cannot even remember the last time I ranked this franchise, because up until earlier this week, I had not seen the most recent TCM film, Leatherface. But now, after having finally watched it, as well as revisiting some of the other films, I'm ready for the ranking. Like I did with my other in-depth rankings, I will be including all of the cuts I own for each of the films. I will start with my least favorite in the franchise, and count down to my favorite Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. And of course, as always, this is just my personal opinion. So, here we go. My in-depth ranking of the TCM franchise. Coming in dead last is The Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning. Now, technically, there is also an R-rated cut of this film, which was available on DVD and Blu-ray, I believe. I only own the unrated cut, because it's my least favorite in the franchise. If I did own the R-rated cut, I would have ranked that one last, and then followed it up with this one. So, no matter which version, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning is my least favorite. Why? Because it's the most forgettable for me. It's not that I don't like it, because I do. It's just too much like the 2003 remake. It almost feels like a remake itself, even though it's supposed to be a prequel to that film. I just always seem to remember the least about this one, and for that reason, it's in last place. Next up, and it sort of pains me to say it, is Leatherface. The thing is, I really liked this movie. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I had not seen this one until earlier this week. When I watched it then for the first time, I really enjoyed it. However, it didn't really feel like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. I knew while watching it, it was going to be a difficult one to rank, because I just don't know where it fits in the franchise. I mean, it's hard to compare and contrast when the film is so different from the rest of them. And I don't mean in tone or anything like that. It just doesn't feel like the same type of horror film. Even so, it was really well done, and if I hadn't already known the twists, I might have enjoyed it even more. Despite being different, because I liked it so much, I did not rank it dead last, and I do enjoy it more than The Beginning. Coincidentally, this one, like The Beginning, is also a prequel. Next up is The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. The interesting thing with this one is this is the R-rated version of the film, released by MGM. This cut runs approximately 100 minutes. There was an even shorter version of this film released in Canada on VHS. That ran approximately 90 minutes. The thing with TCM2 is it has such a different tone. But of course, that was Tobe Hooper's intention. He knew he could never top the raw brutality of his original film, so he elected to go in a different route with this one. I can appreciate that. It's a fun movie, and I like that it's set underneath a theme park. I also really love the bridge kill scene at the beginning, and it's one of my favorite kills in the entire franchise. And TCM2 has some good jump scenes as well. Which brings us to The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, The Gruesome Edition. This adds approximately 1 minute of additional gore. For me, more gore equals a higher score, or in this case, a higher ranking. Next up we have The Texas Chainsaw Massacre Remake from 2003. I actually consider this to be maybe one of the best horror remakes, and I know a lot of people would agree with that. In fact, this is Brad's favorite film in the franchise. For me, though, it's sort of middle ground, whether it be because of nostalgia for other films or other reasons. Here's one that gets a lot of hate, and one that many consider to be the worst in the franchise. Not me, though. Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. This one is known for being the feature film debut of Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey, in very different roles from what they would go on to play. But I have to say, I love Renee as the final girl in this, and Matthew McConaughey gives a fantastic performance. This one, in a way, plays out the most like a traditional slasher film. It has some very memorable moments, including that totally twisted twist, which I really like. And what I like even more is the original extended version of the film, included here on this Scream Factory Collector's Edition. The longer cut is actually called Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and that's the title card it uses. Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre gives a bit more backstory to Renee Zellweger's character. That ultimately gives more perspective to the outcome. Usually, not always, but usually, additional footage will earn a higher ranking for me. And that's exactly what happened in this case. I want to reiterate again, this movie may get a lot of hate, but I love it. Next up is Texas Chainsaw 3D. I'll represent that one by showing this Blu-ray without the slipcover. The fact is, I do not own a 3D TV, so unfortunately I have to rank this one lower than the 2D version, which I'll represent here by putting the slipcover back over the Blu-ray. I gotta say, I like this one a lot. I reviewed it earlier this week, so please be sure to check out that video if you haven't already. But wait until you're finished watching this one. This was written as a direct sequel to the original The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Leatherface then followed this one as a prequel to that trilogy. Texas Chainsaw has a great final girl, an awesome carnival setting, and it takes place around Halloween. The only thing that kept me from maybe ranking this one higher is the way they massacred the timeline. But more on that in my review. And that brings me to the original, Tobe Hooper's classic, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is the film that started it all. The first movie in the franchise, and the one everyone loves. For the most part. Some might say it's overrated, but I don't think so. It's raw, it's brutal, and it's definitely a horror masterpiece. But I sort of have to be in the mood to watch it. Like so many other horror films for me, surprisingly, this one isn't really a comfort watch. It's not the sort of film you put on in the background. You watch The Texas Chainsaw Massacre when you want to watch horror. Plus, the chainsaw sounds and Sally screaming can be a bit distracting. But, like I said, it's still a masterpiece. With that being said, you have to remember, my ranking videos are about my personal favorites, not necessarily what I consider to be the best films in a franchise. Overall, I think at least most of us would agree the original film is the best. Not you, Brad, I know. But since I'm ranking my favorites, I actually prefer Leatherface, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 to the original, and I always have. This VHS release is the R-rated cut of the film, but it's not number one. Because my favorite TCM film is the unrated cut of Leatherface, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. I've always loved this one, and I can't quite pinpoint exactly why. I think it has a lot to do with the swampy setting. It also has that nostalgia factor. For some reason, I rented this one the most growing up, on VHS of course, which I just showed. This unrated cut adds more gore, and as I've previously stated, more gore equals a higher score. This, of course, is the highest score, because it's ranked at number 1. I have to question, though, where does this one even fit in the continuity of the TCM universe? I really don't know, but it really doesn't matter, because the unrated cut of Leatherface, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 is my favorite TCM film. So there you have it, guys, my in-depth ranking of the TCM franchise. What do you think? Comment below and let me know. Thanks for watching, guys. Hit that thumbs up and be kind, subscribe.